I anticipate we will also hear testimony as to why Fani Willis keeps a lot of cash at home and whether he actually told her to do that or taught that as a lesson. Honestly, for someone who grew up poor and from another country, that questioning did not make sense to me because, yes, it's a cultural thing for us too, and growing up with such a humble beginning to keep cash at home. And so when they were, the lawyers, defense lawyers were questioning her, that I could not connect. But let's see what Mr. John Floyd will say.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there was testimony from Fani Willis that her dad, now on the stand, told her to keep 6 months of income handy in the house. That's old school and maybe somewhat legitimate, but it's important in this case to try and explain why would somebody have so much cash laying around to reimburse Mr. Wade.
Did she say anything to you about having a large savings of cash?
Oh no, see, maybe, excuse me, and Your Honor, I'm not trying to be racist, okay, but it's a black thing, okay. I was trained. And most black folks, they hide cash or they keep cash. And I was trained. You always keep some cash, because I've been places, and just because of the color of my skin, for example, I took a fellowship at Harvard when my daughter was just, if I might, Your Honor, when I was just, she was just, maybe 3 years old. And I remember going to a restaurant in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I had a American Express credit card and maybe a Visa or whatever. And I had a lot of what they call traveler's checks. I don't even know if they still have traveler's checks, but traveler's checks. And there was a sign said, with the credit card. For whatever reasons, the man would not take my American Express credit card. So I pulled out my Visa card, and he wouldn't take my Visa card. So then I pulled out my traveler's checks. He said, "Oh, we don't take checks." Now, these were traveler's checks. This was money. I had a $10 bill. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And he said, the bill for my wife at the time, Fani's mother, Fani, and myself was like $9.95, and I had a $10 bill. That was all that. I always remember that. But even before that, I've always kept cash, and I've told my daughter, you keep 6 months worth of cash, always. For example, I had 3 safes in my house. I put some of my clients' stuff there too, things I didn't want other lawyers to be, because you're always in a firm, and I knew that there were special conditions. So some of my clients' things I would bring home, put them in the safe. But I've always kept safes. And as a matter of fact, I gave my daughter her first cash box and told her always keep some cash.
So is that a yes?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's all I got, Judge.
Natalie, and you started this, so I'm going to blame you. You may not know, but I'm not black. And I'm hearing when we get to this cash issue that there may be a cultural component. And we just heard Dad suggest that he did, and he corroborates his daughter, Fani Willis, tell her at some point, you got to have 6 months cash in your house. Tell me your take on all of that.
Oh, yeah. So, I think I have a similar experience. I'm both Black and the child of immigrants. And so my understanding is that it used to be Black people couldn't even have access to banks traditionally in this country. And so the way I was raised, and a lot of Black people and immigrant people that I know, was to keep a few months of your money on hand in case anything went wrong. The thing I was always told was, what if the banks, crash or something crazy happens and you can't access your money? You should always have a good amount of your money stashed away somewhere. And that would be under the mattress or in a safe or something like that. Obviously, as time goes on, that's not how most people do it anymore. But I didn't realize that people weren't doing that anymore, because that's what I was raised to do. So I think this may be a cultural divide.
And it's very interesting and important, Catherine, because I think one of the key things this judge has to believe is that this reimbursement of cash by Mr. Wade, by Fani Willis to Mr. Wade for things he paid for, has to be reasonable. It has to make some sense. So if, in fact, it is normal for some folks to keep a lot of cash on hand for whatever reason they do that. It may affect this judge's ultimate decision. Is it that important? What do you think?
I think it's very important because we heard a lot of questioning by the defense against Fani Willis as to that cash, especially in relation to her travel with Wade, as to why were you exchanging cash. And they were obviously alluding as to whether that's to prevent any record whatsoever of any exchange of money or any gifts, because as a prosecutor, she has that duty to report anyone giving her gifts over $100. So they're trying to establish impropriety, not just a romantic relationship, but also getting gifts improperly. And with the dad actually saying that is all reasonable, then that defeats a lot of the defense argument about that. And as I mentioned earlier, it is a cultural and socio-economic issue that some folks might not understand because, as an immigrant, and as I mentioned earlier, growing up poor, you keep cash and it's just subconsciously you have. And I remember that Fani Willis also testified that she takes cash with her because it's easier to negotiate lower prices like cab fare or, trying to get a better deal with any of the fun activities they were doing during their vacations. That's also a socioeconomic thing where you know how to negotiate and lower the price using cash, not credit card.
Yeah, I think she said she took $4,000 to Belize, $4,000 in cash. Yikes! Anyway, it all turned out fine. The trip apparently was just fine. Now some of the blowback from that trip may be getting into her professional life.